Their stated goal is to destroy us, kill Jews, wipe us off the face of the earth. We can do something, especially here, and we must.
The only Jewish member of the Georgia General Assembly speaks out about the hatred she felt after receiving an anti-Semitic flyer at her home. Other lawmakers echoed her sentiments. Good evening. Welcome to Lawmakers on day 13 of the Georgia legislative session. I'm Donna Lowry. There are efforts underway at the Gold Dome to either regulate Delta-8 THC or ban it altogether. We will break down what it is and more with one lawmaker here in the studio. Several bills are targeting Georgia's prosecutors. One of them would make it easier to recall district attorneys. The lead sponsor of that legislation will tell us more. Also on the show is a legislator who wants to require schools to conduct suicide screenings for children. One of the governor's floor leaders is also joining us to talk about a move to allow low-income pregnant women to receive welfare. But first, a wrap-up of the day's news under the Gold Dome in today's Capitol Report. On the floor of the House, representatives united against hate today. House member Esther Panitch led a powerful speech on anti-Semitism.
According to the FBI in 2019, American Jews, who make up less than 2% of the American population, were the victims of over 60.2% of anti-religious hate crimes. A January 12, 2023 report shows that anti-Semitic attitudes in the United States are widespread and increasing. 85% of Americans believe at least one anti-Jewish trope, as opposed to 61% in 2019.
This in response to anti-Semitic flyers a hate group distributed to driveways in Sandy Springs and Dunwoody on Sunday morning. Panitch said in a tweet that she too received a flyer.
This weekend, it was my turn to be targeted. Unfortunately, it's not the first time to be afraid as a Jew in the United States. A little background. I'm named, Jews named for the dead. I'm named for my great aunt, Esther Fried of blessed memory, who was killed by the Nazis because she was Jewish and disabled.
Dozens of lawmakers stood in the well in solidarity with Panitch, who is the only Jewish lawmaker in the General Assembly.
We know you stand with the Jewish community. We know you stand with the Jewish people against hate in Georgia. I am heartened by all the love and support I have felt this morning. We all know it might be the Jews today, but the same people will come after you tomorrow.
Speaker of the House John Burns started the day's session with his own condemnation of the flyers.
As we begin this morning, I must take a moment to address a repulsive incident that occurred over the weekend. Saturday night, under cover of darkness, committees in North Fulton County were visited by an old enemy, hatred. I know all of you join with me in taking such actions very seriously. Local police are investigating this incident, and Governor Kemp has offered the assistance of state law enforcement. We pause this morning to reiterate that hate has no place in Georgia.
The anti-Semitic flyers were also on senators' minds.
The white nationalist groups responsible for these actions seek to desensitize us to anti-Semitic rhetoric. Yet we know that rhetoric often leads to violence. We cannot let them win. I hope that you will join me in standing with the Jewish community and denouncing these actions in no uncertain terms.
While I am not Jewish, I know that my beliefs are underpinned by a Jewish text and belief. And I personally stand with the Jewish community against anti-Semitic hate because I understand what it feels like to be targeted on the basis of your identity.
And the minority leader used the moment to remind the Senate of the pending House bill sponsored by Panitch.
There is an anti-Semitism bill labeled in the House that we stand ready to support. I hope you will support us in our endeavor to ensure Georgia is a place where hate against any community is not only untolerated, but staunchly rejected.
Also in the Senate, remembering a pioneer in the fight against hatred and bigotry.
A resolution honoring the memory of Miss Rosa Parks and recognizing February 6, 2023 as Rosa Parks Day and for other purposes.
Susan McCauley, surrounded by family members in the Welland Gallery, thanked the chamber and promoted her efforts to create a federal holiday honoring her famous aunt.
Thank you so much for the resolution. I look forward to the federal holiday coming up. I know it's going to happen.
That's our Capitol Report. Now let's get to more specific legislation. Delta 8 THC is a product extracted from hemp and is legal in Georgia. Well, some use it when they are trying to find ways to sleep and others for health issues. Some use it to get high. It's readily available and unregulated. And joining me is a lawmaker who wants to change that, Democratic Representative Shelley Hutchinson of Snellville. Welcome to Lawmakers. So tell us about Delta 8 THC and how you first found out about it.
So I first found out about Delta 8 because my kids were telling me that there was a gas station near our house that was the weed store. And all of their friends said the same thing, that this gas station was the weed store. And I went in, and you can buy buds that look like marijuana. You can buy pre-rolled cigarettes, gummies, all with Delta 8, which is pretty strong. And I would say if you've ever used marijuana, just as strong as the marijuana that is illegal in Georgia right now.
This surprised you. You had no idea. And it is legal. Tell me what you've learned.
Well, I know that it is legal because of the Federal Farm Act. The Federal Farm Act did not address Delta 8, 9, or 10, and that is why it's legal across the country. So now we have all types of edibles and vape pens and everything that you can think of that you can buy in the marijuana store in a legal state, in a dispensary. You can get Delta 8 in Georgia, usually at any gas station nearby.
Wow, and it's all over the state. Mm-hmm. So I do know that in the Senate, there is a bipartisan group of lawmakers, and they have introduced SB 22, which would ban the sale or purchase of the product to those under 18. You want to regulate it, though, rather than ban it entirely. Tell us why.
From what I understand, there should not be selling it to kids, anybody under 21 right now. I'm not sure what the ban would be, because from what I understand, if you're under 21, you can't get it, but it's happening. The gas station that's in my district that I went to see is down the street from the biggest high school, and kids are getting it from there. And there's a sign that says that they don't sell to under 21, but we know either they don't sell it to them and they're getting it from someone else, but it's getting in their hands.
Yeah, so tell me what you are looking to do personally.
So I would like to have it regulated. I think the fact that it is so close to a high school in my district, and I'm sure in other districts, but in my district, this particular place that I went to visit is the high school is one block down on the left, and the middle school is one block down on the right. So I think it should not be near schools. I think it should be regulated just like alcohol. I don't think anyone under 18 or under 21 probably should not be buying this, because the problem is we don't know what's in it. You can have one product that makes you very, very happy. You could have another product that can lay you on the floor for 2 days. And these are stories I'm hearing from teenagers. So if a teenager is having these experiences, imagine what adults would do. And they do have a place. I think that if regulated, you can see this helping people with anxiety, insomniacs like myself. It has a place, but we need to know what's in it, and we don't need to have it close to kids.
You're still in the gaining information stage of all of this, but you're working with some groups that are helping you determine how to make this bill
Yes,
work.
I'm talking to cannabis experts. I want to know how we can regulate this to be on the right side of the law, to be on the right side of constituents who want this or not want this in their neighborhoods. I just want to make sure we're doing it right, and I'm not making a knee-jerk reaction to something that I found in my district.
Yeah, and you think that you'll have some other support for this? Because we've talked about the Senate, but you think the House?
Yes, I think so. I'm on the subcommittee for cannabis and regulated industries, and I've talked to our chair, and he is interested, and I think there's definitely an appetite for it.
Yeah, so we're here talking about Delta 8 THC, but there are other forms of this too.
Yes.
So
there's Delta 8, Delta 9, and Delta 10. I'm not the scientist that can break that down, but I know that Delta 8 can be very strong. Delta 9 is stronger than Delta 8, and Delta 10, from what I understand, is weaker than the two. So it's very, very, very confusing. So it would take a lot of education for everyone to know what they're getting when they buy these products, because they are readily available. Any gas station, any smoke shop, vape shop, which are everywhere, you can get these products.
wow, so it's good that you're bringing this to everybody's attention, especially parents who need to know this. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll keep up with you on that legislation, okay?
Thanks.
All right, then. We're going to now talk about several bills that are aimed at tighter reins on the state's district attorneys and solicitor generals. One of them would make it easier to recall them from office. And I spoke to that bill's lead sponsor, Republican Representative Houston Gaines, who is also the Majority Caucus Vice Chairman. And I started by asking him about his bill, HB 229, and what it's all about.
Right now, we've got a problem in our state where you have prosecutors, district attorneys, and solicitors who are not doing their job. They're not prosecuting crime in our state. You've got DAs who have written policies that are just going to wholesale not prosecute certain crimes. And that's not the job of a DA. A job of a DA is to go and prosecute criminals. And the job of the legislator is to write the law, and then the DA and the solicitors are supposed to go and enforce it and prosecute folks who are breaking the law. So we have issues like in my district. I live in Athens. Our district attorney has a written policy. She's not going to prosecute certain crimes. So she's gone out and said she's basically telling folks, come to our community, break the law, and there's no consequences for your action. Not only is that, she's inept. You look at some of the issues. We had a murder case that her office lost a year ago. Well, that individual was out now free, and it went and killed somebody else and got caught a week and a half ago in our community. So there's real consequences for district attorneys and solicitors who aren't doing their job. So what we've got in House Bill 229 is to give an opportunity for citizens to recall their DA if they're not doing their job. It also puts in the law that they have to prosecute crime. If there's probable cause for a crime in their jurisdiction, they have to go after it and prosecute it. It remains, and they keep discretion of their oath of office. But if there is a crime and there's probable cause, they have to go and prosecute it. And if they don't, then they'll be subject to recall, which we have recall laws in Georgia already in statute. What it does do, though, is lower the threshold, the number of signatures required for prosecutors in these cases.
Doesn't that make it difficult for them to do their jobs, though, if they always have to look over their shoulders and think about possibly being recalled?
Every elected official in the state of Georgia is subject to a recall. But right now the threshold is 30% of registered voters, which in many elections, less than 30% of registered voters go out and vote. And so what we're trying to do is make it a threshold that's achievable. And in order to be recalled, not anybody, if you don't like your DA, you can't just go recall them. You have to go to a Superior Court judge, which can be appealed to the Supreme Court to even get a recall petition granted. And in order to have that recall petition, there's only a few reasons why that could be the case, and one of them is breaking the law, and that's why we're putting in law they have to go and prosecute cases. And that's what this bill does. It makes it very clear that prosecutors' job is to go and prosecute the law, and we're providing a recall avenue. There's also House Bill 231, which Representative Joseph Gullett has led the charge on to create an oversight commission for our district attorneys to put in law an opportunity for fellow DAs and other officials appointed by the legislature and the governor and the lieutenant governor to go and review these situations that we're seeing with DAs around the state and solicitors around the state.
What about those who say that this kind of just adds more to government? It's another oversight. It's something more that we're putting in.
Well, the number one job of government is protecting its people and public safety. And so there will be a little expense to the Oversight Commission, for example, and if there's a recall election, there'll be some expense there. But it's worth it to protect life and to make sure that we're protecting public safety in communities across our state. Again, it's the #1 goal of government.
Finally, I have to ask you, there are people who feel that this is directed at Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and the special grand jury she had looking into former President Trump. What do you say?
Well, you've heard my whole answer for the last however few minutes, and the only issue that I brought up was one in my community. Representative Gullett, who's been focused on this issue, Dick Donovan was the district attorney in his community, sexual assault charges. There's been other DAs who've had felony indictments against them. So what we've seen is repeated issues throughout our state on district attorneys who aren't doing their job, solicitors who aren't doing their job, and that's why we're going to go and make sure they're held responsible for their actions and keep them accountable.
I want to thank Representative Gaines for that interview. Coming up, 2 lawmakers join me on the set to talk about efforts to require suicide screenings for children and to allow low-income pregnant women to receive welfare.
Lawmakers is made possible by Georgia Farm Bureau. With over 80 years of helping everyone understand the importance of agriculture in our state. After all, ag is Georgia's #1 industry. Food and fiber production represents over $74 billion in output of Georgia's strong economy. The Georgia Farm Bureau legislative team works to represent producers across Georgia at the state capitol during the session and year-round. Georgia Farm Bureau, the voice of Georgia farmers.
Here's what's new this month with Passport.
Kirsten had a lot of courage. She fought for Black culture.
They could have killed you. You're exactly what we need right now. Oh my God.
What is this?
She was poisoned.
These and all your favorite shows are available with Passport. Support your PBS station and stream more with Passport on the PBS app.
We care about things that affect the lives of every American.
We are there at the front lines
to get to the heart of what really matters in every issue.
This country has not seen this in 80 years.
This extraordinary moment in American history.
You're making such a huge impact.
Trust is at the heart of what we do.
One of the easiest ways to support GPB is to become a monthly GPB sustainer. Your monthly support continues automatically month after month and supports not only the great programming that you love on GPB, but also our efforts in the community. GPB is committed to provide a trusted space for lifelong learning on the air, digitally and in person all across Georgia. All this is made possible with your monthly support. And we can't do it without you, so please donate right now at gpb.org/give. And thanks.
Welcome back to Lawmakers. I'm Donna Lowry. We're going to talk about bills looking to help children and pregnant women. Joining me are Democratic Representative Misha Maynor of Atlanta and Republican Representative Sue Hong of Lawrenceville. Thank you for joining me right here on Lawmakers. We have 2 different bills, equally important, so I'm going to go back and forth to discuss it. So, Leader Hong, I'm going to start with you. Your bill, HB 129, which would basically extend to pregnant women welfare or temporary assistance for needy families, TANF, benefits. So tell us about it.
That's correct, and thank you for having me. Improving the maternal health of women has been a major priority for Governor Kemp, and I am happy to put forward legislation that will extend TANF to pregnant women. Currently, the federal law does allow, or federal government does allow states to expand it to pregnant women, but in Georgia, we do not have that yet. So this legislation will allow them to be eligible for TANF.
So basically, there's this loophole right now where pregnant women can get it after they have the children. Pregnant women, after they have the children, women can get it after they have the children, but not while they're pregnant.
That's correct. And obviously there is a need when they are pregnant. And so this bill will go ahead and extend it to when they become pregnant. And they will continue to be able to be eligible after they give birth.
Yeah, let's talk about their the numbers of people who are receiving TANF or welfare benefits have dropped. This will increase it a little bit. Do you have any idea how many women we might talk about?
I think that number is always shifting. That's just the nature of pregnancies. But definitely there is a need, and it is going to be helping the most vulnerable population in Georgia. So it will definitely be helping the pregnant women. I think it has shown that this program, since there are different requirements like work requirement, there is also job training, et cetera. And so a lot of people are taking advantage of that while they're receiving assistance and being able to become productive members of society and do better under this program.
I know that there have been efforts to improve things like the maternal mortality rate in this state, and this I think is an effort to try to help with that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
I guess if you're not getting the food and the needs that you should have for your child, that puts you at risk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll talk more about that a little bit later, because I want to talk to you being the governor's floor leader too on this and other things. So let's move to you, Representative Maynor, a little bit. Your bill. You have several bills, but we want to talk about 141, HB 141. Focuses on helping diagnose mental illness in younger children at the school level. Tell us more about it.
The thought, thank you for having me on as well. The thought really is at the beginning of school years, children are doing all sorts of testing for reading, math levels, as well as just demographics. And so while we're doing all of that testing, we really should just focus on screening children for suicide as well. The numbers for children going up, or the numbers are going up for children that are deciding to take their own lives. And the thought is, if we can save one life, that's just as important as saving 1,000.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. Thinking of young children thinking about suicide is hard for some of us to grasp.
Yes.
But it's happening. What made you think about this in terms of legislation?
Really, it's just the number. So the number of children that are dying by suicide has progressively been rising. After COVID, it exponentially rose. And oftentimes when you're speaking to parents after this, the number one thing that they say is, I didn't know. Right, I just didn't know. And so the suicide screening would not be a tool that the schools have to come up with. The American Pediatric Association, they have the screening tools already available. The schools would just need to use the tools that are already deemed appropriate and age specific for the child.
Right, so are these questions that they would ask them?
They're questions, and it's very similar to a depression screening, because oftentimes when you're thinking about taking your life, it could be depression or it could be another form of mental illness, but a lot of the times it is depression. And I believe physicians in general, there's this push by the CDC to say all physicians should start screening all patients for depression. So there's a depression scale, and so the depression scale is very similar to the APA suicide screening scale.
Right. So I know you have another bill. It's HB 172. Follows along the same lines, but a little different. Talk about that. And that's a bipartisan bill.
It is bipartisan, and they kind of do go together, because think about if you have a child, I'll give you a scenario, a true scenario. You have a child that might have suicide ideation. They haven't attempted, but they're just thinking about it, or they've thought about it, they've researched it, whatever the case may be. When a parent finds out that their child is thinking about this, one choice might be this is not real and they, forget about it. Or it might be a parent that says, oh no, what do I do? And they take them to an emergency room. When you take them to the emergency room, the screening is going to be that suicide screening that I just mentioned. And at that point, a physician can say, I'm going to do a 1013 on this child. A 1013 is an involuntary admission into an inpatient pediatric psychiatric facility. Or they may say, this is ideation. They don't have any other concerns where their life is in danger. So they go home and give them some outpatient resources. But if they do the 1013 and they are admitted into an inpatient facility, that is supposed to be for a short amount of time for observation. The problem, though, is once the kids are getting admitted, not just on a 1013, but once the children are admitted into these inpatient psychiatric facilities, the parents can no longer get in touch with the facility.
So they can't call them, they can't talk to their children?
They can't.
Wow, so there's no communication, even for the really young ones?
Even the really young ones, and this is as young as 5 and 6. And so think about, I know some people say, well, maybe the parent is the cause of the suicide. Well, we can put some guardrails in place if the parent is the factor that's causing them to feel like this. But children, and that bill is only for children 12 and younger, because the idea is if you're older, then you can go and ask for the phone. But if you're 5 and 6, you're in a place you've never been before, you don't see anyone you know, you really might not know that you even have an option to call your parent. And so this bill really is just trying to force, it really is forcing the facilities to contact the parents, because right now they aren't. And if anyone were to do a Google search right now on reviews for any institution, I could name some if you wanted me to, but
not today.
I won't name them, but they will say up and down, the facility won't contact me. I haven't heard from the facility in 5 days.
And these Google reviews are from teenagers or older people who were in as children and are talking about their experiences as children.
Sometimes it's the children, but most of the time it's the parents that cannot get in touch with the facility.
You know, you're certainly bringing something to light that a lot of people did not know, so I appreciate that. I'm going to move back to you, Representative Hong, because I want to talk about the fact that you're new to the legislature, so welcome. But I also want to say that you're the governor's floor leader, and so tell me what that's like for you.
I am. So the other day, somebody at a meeting said, "How long have you been serving?" And I said, 1 month. And so I am completely honored that the governor did pick me to be one of his floor leaders. I have 3 other representatives and 2 senators with me in a suite, and they've been very kind and very helpful in guiding me and teaching me, but it definitely has put me in a place where I'm learning very fast and getting to know different topics and different areas, and also learning the needs of Georgians a lot faster. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
You're not intimidated by any of this at all, are you?
I'm just thankful that it's really fun. It's fun, and I'm glad that I'm able to be doing this.
You believe you may be the first African American, Asian American woman to have that position.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what do you think, what are the challenges for you with this? Anything, just finding out, learning everything?
It is. Everything does move very quickly, keeping up with a lot of bills that are being dropped, that are being heard by committees. So just kind of being prepared and knowing what's going on and being on top of everything. So I'm at the Capitol super early and I'm leaving super late. But it is a very important work, and every time I'm going into the Capitol, I realize the immense importance of what we're doing there.
Yeah, well, thank you. Talk about hitting the ground running. You really are doing it. And you have been, this is your, how many years now for you?
Completed 2, so this is year 3.
Yeah, and you're both really working hard down there, so we appreciate all that you're doing. We'll keep up with you on these bills and find out how they're doing so that we can continue to report on them. And thank you so much for both of you coming in today.
Thank you.
All right. That does it for Lawmakers today. We'll be back tomorrow for Legislative Day 14. Tune in tomorrow at 9 also, and 2 p.m. for Political Rewind with Bill Nigut for more political news. Good night.